Way down yonder, it's the Pawpawdcast.
Hi, I'm Sue.
And I'm Austin.
And we are here for the very first episode ever of our Pawpawdcast.
Yep, the Pawpawdcast with Sue and Austin. This is not our first Pawpaw podcast, though. That honor goes to the Pawpaw, Illinois episode of Under Rocks that you recorded. Find it under the podcast tab at wnij.org.
That's right, or wherever you get your podcast.
Yes.
Here I go. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've been talking about this for a long time. Over the years,
That's
we've
right.
been collecting different interviews and audio, people trying their first pawpaws, us trying many pawpaw liqueurs and such. Collected this audio, and now it's time to bring it to the world.
So this is a depository for all of our Pawpaw audio that we've gathered over the years.
We're making pawpaw history, everyone.
Right, so a little bit about us. We grow pawpaws here in DeKalb, Illinois. We've been going to the Ohio Pawpaw Festival for 10 years now, and we are NAPGA members. We often volunteer at the NAPGA tent at the Ohio Pawpaw Festival. And just last year, we helped the Paw Paw Lions Club organize the inaugural Pawpaw Festival in Paw Paw, Illinois.
Yeah, it was an amazing festival. What was the estimated turnout for it for the very first one ever?
We think somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 people. We really didn't have an ability to make a head count, but it was a great turnout. It was a huge success. We had a lot of activities going on. There were all sorts of pawpaw-themed kids activities. We had a market of pawpaw vendors and aficionados sharing their baked goods. There was a pay-what-you-like bake sale benefiting the Paw Paw Lions Club that featured pawpaw baked goods. We had artisans in a vendor market and speakers, and we're going to hear from those speakers today. Oh, and one of the coolest things, I have to mention it. Okay. They had a tram tour of all the various pawpaw trees in town. I think that'll be back for the festival because it does return this year, Saturday, September 20th, 2025.
Yeah, and I want to be on the tram this time. Didn't have time to last time, but yeah, we got to make that trip. We'll take you on that when we go. So I think the big reason for a Pawpaw Festival is just this burning desire, this hunger for pawpaws. People have heard of them. They want to try one.
Paw Paw, Illinois, at least for me, is one of the reasons why I even know what a pawpaw is, as the fruit is their namesake, and a lot of folks in town are growing the trees. So it's a point of civic pride, and I think perfectly situated to accommodate all the different visitors from neighboring states, Chicagoland, all over the place. People came out in droves.
It was exciting. And as someone from Michigan, I always saw that town called Pawpaw, and I was like, "What is a pawpaw? Are you talking about a bear?" I really didn't know.
Yeah, so,
and then Illinois has a pawpaw, so that kind of set us on our journey.
Yep, probably about 2010 or so is when I really started researching them, and that was when we first were sort of starting to see each other as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, romance.
And so this has been part of our relationship from the beginning.
Yeah. Sweet treat. Hey, let's get to some speeches.
Yes, so our first speaker from the inaugural Paw Paw Festival in Paw Paw, Illinois is Adam D'Angelo. He has a master's degree in plant breeding and plant genetics, and he is the manager of breeding operations for the Savannah Institute. He's also the major driving force behind Project Pawpaw. Visit them at projectpawpaw.com. He's going to tell us a little bit about growing pawpaws and what they're doing to advance new cultivars of pawpaws. We'll hear from Sue, who did a round of Pawpaw Trivia, and we'll have the answers at the end.
You can play along.
Yep. And then we'll hear from Neal Rogers, past president of the Paw Paw Lions Club, with a bit of history about pawpaw trees in Paw Paw, Illinois.
So many pawpaws. Town of Pawpaw, the tree, the fruit, the legend.
Take a drink. No, just kidding. Anyway,
you don't
want to do that by the end of this podcast, trust me. Or maybe you do, I don't know. But either way, we'll be back with Pawpaw Beer, hopefully, for the 2025 Pawpaw Festival in Paw Paw, Illinois.
What kind of beer?
Pawpaw Beer. Oh. We're working on it, though, so fingers crossed, but it sounds like it's going to happen. The Pawpaw Festival in Pawpaw, Illinois returns this year, Saturday, September 20th, so mark your calendars. And you can get in touch at info@pawpawfest.org or just check out pawpawfest.org for more information. We'll have a schedule of events up probably in the next couple of months. We're currently ironing out our budget and schedule. Here are the speakers from last year's festival.
Welcome, folks. Happy Pawpaw Festival. This is really exciting to see an inaugural Pawpaw Festival starting here in a town named after a fruit. You've probably heard this over and over today, but the pawpaw is a very old fruit. It's a fruit with a lot of cultural significance. It's a fruit that fed indigenous people for thousands of years before we came here. It's a fruit that fed colonists and settlers seasonally for hundreds of years. It was George Washington's favorite fruit. It fed the Lewis and Clark expedition when they ran out of food. It's a fruit that is steeped in American history. It's a fruit that's steeped in American culture, and it's a fruit that we've lost. It's a fruit with towns named after it, and it's a fruit that you can only find at festivals and farmers markets and things like that. And today we're going to talk more about the things that we're doing to help get pawpaws back into the food system, some of the challenges and the reasons we're not seeing them in the food system. And of course, we're going to talk about the exciting things that are coming down the pipeline to bring new life to an old fruit. So, to a little bit of background, my name is Adam D'Angelo. I run Project Pawpaw, which is a crowd-funded pawpaw research and breeding effort. So what we've been doing is raising money and planting pawpaw research orchards around the country. We planted one in southern New Jersey this spring, and we're planting one in southern Wisconsin, hopefully next spring, and working our way around the country. And the plan is to do multi-environment trialing, so test all of the varieties of pawpaws, the named varieties that exist, side by side in replicated orchards in multiple states to see just how they stack up to each other, to see the effect of environment on varieties. And then the next step is to develop new varieties that are better suited for each location, that taste great, grow well, and have a longer shelf life, and that are a better crop for small farmers. So the basic motivation behind all of this is we have the inherent belief that a small farmer is better able to take care of their land than a large corporation. And this really came out of an effort to increase small farm viability. We wanted to give small farmers a high value, low input crop that they could grow in addition to their other farming activities, help supplement their farm income. And pawpaws seem to be a great candidate for that for a number of reasons, and we can dive into that too. But first of all, let's talk about the reason we're all here at a Pawpaw Festival. And that's because pawpaws are really dang hard to find if you don't know where the tree is. Historically, people have gone foraging for pawpaws in pawpaw patches. They pick them, there's songs about them, picking up pawpaw, put them in your basket. They've gone out into the woods. In today's world, not as many people have access to that, not as many people are able to do that. And in addition, a lot of the wild stands of pawpaws have been removed for traditional agriculture, parking lots, you name it. Everything that you see is at expense of some habitat that was here before. Pawpaws have a really short shelf life. It can be hours, it can be days, it can sometimes be weeks with proper refrigeration. And that's one of the reasons you're not seeing them in grocery stores. It's really hard to find a pawpaw in a grocery store because it's a logistical challenge to even get the fruit from the tree to a farmer's market or to a grocery store. That limitation is actually a pro if you look at things like a Pawpaw Festival, which is a great opportunity to bring people from all around the country together to enjoy a seasonal fruit and to share information and knowledge and exchange trees and plant material and spread seeds throughout the landscape. But nonetheless, we're still looking at some of the bottlenecks. Pawpaws are a great crop for small farmers for increasing small farm viability. Perennial crops and fruit crops in general are a great sustainable crop for farmers to grow. It involves less disturbing of the soil. These, as a fruit crop, require fewer pesticides, herbicides, chemical inputs than more conventional fruit crops like apples and peaches. Since pawpaws have evolved here in the United States in this climate, they're particularly well suited for growing in this climate, and we don't need to really supplement their environment nearly as much as other crops that were not developed here. all of those things combine into a crop that is very sustainable, because that's an additive benefit of pawpaws, is that they are a very sustainable crop. There's also a displacement effect of pawpaws, which they are displacing tropical fruits that are often grown across the world using ethical land practices, ethical labor practices, or questionably ethical, and then shipped across the world and sold as loss leaders in the grocery store. Buying pawpaws from a local farmer keeps money in the community. It helps strengthen that farmer and helps them give back to their community. And it's also a great and nutritious fruit that connects us back with the land and reminds us of where we came. Project Pawpaw in itself is really here to develop new varieties. We've got about 100 named varieties so far, and that's a collective we, as it's been hundreds of years of people selecting and collecting and gathering and sharing different named varieties. And for those of you who don't know much about cultivars or named varieties themselves, a named variety of pawpaw is a pawpaw tree that someone at some point has decided has high quality fruit or some other attribute that they like. And they've taken scion wood from that, so they've taken a stick off of that tree and they've grafted it onto other trees. Now you can graft that onto trees that are already in the ground, or you can graft it onto seedlings, but what you're doing is you're cloning that tree. A good example is apples. If you go to the grocery store and find a Granny Smith apple, the Granny Smith apple came from a Granny Smith apple tree. Every Granny Smith apple came from a Granny Smith apple tree, and every Granny Smith apple tree is genetically identical. It's a clone, all tracing back to the very first Granny Smith apple tree. Now, this has happened thousands of times in apples. There's thousands of apples, and not many of them are represented in our modern food system, and it's happened many, many times in pawpaw as well. So we've been able to stand on the shoulders of giants to start this work. We've assembled, and we're continuing to assemble, a collection of the named varieties from around the country. Now, a lot of these are just wild selections that were brought out, that they were found in the wild and shared. A certain percentage of them have been the result of plant breeding by early adopters, people who have made cross-pollinations between multiple trees to get the combination of traits they like. Now, that's the sort of work we're doing. It's traditional plant breeding. It's the same way that things happen in nature, just a little bit more control. So when we're looking to start our plant breeding process, what we do is we make a cross. And a cross consists of taking the pollen from one tree and putting it onto the flower of another tree. Now, we use an extremely scientific tool to do that called a paintbrush. And we literally gather the pollen and put it into little weigh boats or tubes. And then we take a paintbrush and put that onto the flower that we're hoping to pollinate. Now, as a thought exercise, if we were trying to get a combination of two traits, so say that we have tree A has one trait, maybe it has thick skin that we're interested in, and tree B has really firm flesh. We'd take the pollen from tree A and we'd put it onto the flower of tree B, and we'd hope that we can recover a seedling that has both the thick skin and the firm flesh. Now, any of you with kids out there know that it's not possible to predict what your kids will look like exactly. You can have a good idea. They're going to look something like you and the parent, and well, hopefully. And so it's a very similar things with pawpaws. You can generally know what they should look like, but to get a combination of the traits that you're really hoping for, you need to have a big population size. So we often aim for 200 or more seeds from a particular cross. So that's after we make the paintbrush pollination, we let it grow into a fruit, we save that fruit, and we take the seeds and we plant those seeds out into seedlings. And like I said, we aim for about 200 seedlings per cross. And then it's time to grow them out and to see what sort of fruit they make. Now, that's a long process. It can take 7 to 9 years to go from seed to seed, sometimes a little bit faster. So what we've really been focusing on, in addition to planting these research orchards and figuring out what works well in different places, is figuring out how to speed up that process. Because in tree breeding, you count the number of generations you can get in a lifetime, and that's a daunting fact. So what we've been doing is, these research orchards we're planting are also rootstock orchards. They're larger than what we need for the variety trialing experiment, because the goal is, as we continue to make crosses and grow these seedlings, we can take scion, we can take that stick from the little seedling and graft it onto a larger tree and get it to flower in maybe 3 years instead of 7 years. So we can speed that along. We can see what sort of fruit that grafted seedling then makes and decide if that's the combination of traits we want. So the first orchard we put in was in southern New Jersey. It's 800 trees. They're planted at a rather tight density. It features woven weed mat to keep in-row weeds down, and we established a mixed cover crop in between the orchard. It has irrigation. We established it with tree tubes to help protect the seedlings as they get established, and it was a wonderful success. We had about 90% survival in our first planting, which is excellent for a planting at that scale. And we're going to go back and fill in the gaps this fall or next spring. And we're looking to do that more and more. We're going to plant one in Wisconsin with a very similar experimental design, and we're going to do that around the country so that we can start to control for these different environmental effects. So that's one part of it. That's the breeding. We're also doing research. We've got a 3-phase approach to help make pawpaws a better crop for small farmers. It's research, it's breeding, and it's market development. So the breeding is going to take some time. We established that. It's going to take 15, 20 years. It's a long project. The research can happen much faster. Once we get our trees in the ground and start getting fruit, we can start to evaluate those varieties and make recommendations for existing varieties that farmers should plant. But even before that, we can start to develop recommendations for growers who already have fruiting trees to help increase the quality and consistency of their fruit. We can look at things like temperature and humidity, post-harvest storage. We can develop different harvest crates or find solutions that work for farmers and help them to get their fruit to people. We can also do consumer education. As we get into market development, the important thing is to make sure that once these farmers have trees on their land, they have a reliable path for their fruit from tree to table. Now that can look like consumer education. That can look like helping getting grocery stores or local markets the education they need to know how to sell the fruit and market it. It can also be looking at other alternative uses instead of fresh fruit. Things like frozen pulp and helping to develop ice cream formulations. And there's a large demand in the beverage market now for pawpaw beers and pawpaw soft drinks. And we just see the demand of this fruit has been exploding over the past 5 years, and it's been really exciting to see. So that's a basic overview of Project Pawpaw, and I guess the last thing I'll say is we went with this crowdfunding approach because we really believe this is a pawpaws for the people, by the people type of thing. There is not good federal funding to consistently provide for the establishment of these programs. We've seen over the past 100 years, public investment in this sort of research has diminished in favor of things with faster deliverables and faster grant timelines. And so due to that, we're not seeing new research and breeding programs like this pop up. So we decided to take it into our own hands, take it into everyone's hands. And we've been raising money through the sale of t-shirts and seedlings and earrings and all sorts of pawpaw themed merchandise. And we've been going to pawpaw festivals and farmers markets and through our online store. And all of that money has been directly invested back into establishing these orchards. We're not getting paid for our time. We're using this to pay for materials. It's an impact organization. We want to see this work. We need to see this work. So we're planting these orchards around, and we're just doing it. And that's the plan. And thankfully, it's just happened to align so well with the increase in popularity of pawpaws over the past few years. And we're seeing more and more pawpaw festivals pop up. And more people learn about a fruit that's in their very backyards. And I can't wait to see what comes with next year and the years after that. Thank you, folks.
That was Adam D'Angelo of Project Pawpaw. You can find out more at projectpawpaw.com. And now we've got trivia. Pawpaw Trivia with Sue Stevens.
This was live from the stage at Pawpaw Fest in Pawpaw, Illinois. Play along. Write down your answers, and we'll have the answers for you at the end of the show.
So the way we're going to play, do not shout out answers. You don't want to give everyone away, give your great answer away to anyone else, another team. You want to win. We'll have 10 questions. They're multiple choice. So write down the letter. Some of them will have more than one. I will let you know on those questions. And so you'll be writing down, question 1, and then put your answer, which will be A, B, C, D. And make sure you put your name on your card, someone to represent, because if there's a tie, we might have to have a drawing. But we want a clear winner here today. So here we go. Everybody ready? Question number 1. Which part of the pawpaw is good for eating? A, seeds. B, pulp. C, skin. D, leaves. Which one is good for eating? Leaves. All right, I started off with an easy one there. This next one, might have to sing it. The question is, where, oh, where is sweet little Susie? A, way over there in the pawpaw patch. B, hither and thither in the pawpaw patch. C, down in the holler in the pawpaw patch. Or D, way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. Question 3. Which 2 of the following presidents were supposed to be fond of pawpaws? 2, and I'm going to read quite a list here. It looks like I'm going to read 8. You pick 2. 2 of these presidents liked their pawpaws. A, Thomas Jefferson. B, William Howard Taft. C, Teddy Roosevelt. D, George Washington. E, George W. Bush. F, William Henry Harrison. G, Herbert Hoover. H, Jimmy Carter. Number 4. Pawpaws have what type of branching? What do the branches do on the tree? What type of branching do they have? A, alternate. B, opposite. C, random. D, local. Question number 5. Which Illinois site does not have pawpaw trees? It's a very sad question. Which Illinois site doesn't have pawpaw trees? A, Franklin Creek State Natural Area. B, Allerton Park. C, Starved Rock. D, Burpee Museum of Natural History. Whew, we are halfway through. Okay, number 6. Which first lady planted a pawpaw sapling in the White House kitchen garden? A, Martha Washington. B, Mary Todd Lincoln. C, Barbara Bush. D, Michelle Obama. Number 7. John James Audubon depicted these birds in pawpaw trees in one of his detailed ornithological illustrations. A, the American redstart. B, the American robin. C, the yellow-billed cuckoo. D, goldfinch. Here we go. Number 8, the triloba in Asimina triloba, which is the scientific name for a pawpaw. The triloba refers to what part of the pawpaw tree? Think about it. Triloba. Okay. A, the seed. B, the leaf. C, the fruit. D, the flower. 2 more questions. All right, which is greater? The maximum number of pawpaws in a single cluster, or the maximum number of seeds in a single pawpaw fruit? So which one is bigger? A, the maximum number of fruit in a cluster. B, the maximum number of seeds in a single fruit. Number 10. The pawpaw is the sole host plant for the larva of which butterfly? A, tiger swallowtail butterfly. B, zebra swallowtail butterfly. C, black swallowtail butterfly. Or D, spicebush swallowtail butterfly. All right, that is it. Everyone ready for the answers?
Okay. Hopefully you have your answers ready. We'll have the correct answers at the end for you. And now let's hear from Neal Rogers, past president of the Paw Paw Lions Club with a history of pawpaws in Pawpaw, Illinois.
Hi, everybody. I'm Neal Rogers, one of the organizers of our inaugural Pawpaw Fest here in Pawpaw, Illinois. I am a member of the Pawpaw Lions Club, have been for over 40 years. I'm the immediate past president now, so I was president of the club last year. And to say the least, I didn't know that we would be here today doing what we are more than about 3 months ago when Austin and Sean both I was first introduced to them, and they came forward with an idea that we should have a Pawpaw Fest. As most of you know, Labor Day is our largest fundraising event for the Lions Club in town, which happened only a few weeks ago. So the idea of another festival in September, it took some convincing, but here we are today, and I think it's been a huge success. So what I've been asked to do is talk a little bit about the history of pawpaws in Pawpaw. And so I've put together some info, and I'll share with you some of the information I've learned and things I've known from the time that I've lived here. I was born and raised just a quarter mile outside of town. Moved to DeKalb for about 10 years while I was working at General Electric in DeKalb, and then moved back down close to Pawpaw. I live about 2 miles east of town now, over in DeKalb County. I'll get to a little more of that later. And have been here ever since. But I do consider myself a resident of Pawpaw and a lifelong resident in fact. So the earliest records that you can find about this area dating back in before the 1800s was that this was all Indian land. It was primarily habitated by the Potawatomi, and as the earliest settlers came out to this area in the 1830s, their first comments, or the first thing they noted or what they found, was a 2,000 acre forest that extended from here in Pawpaw east about 2 miles and then south about another 2 miles, kind of a triangular piece. That woods was full of oaks, hard black walnuts, and other hardwoods that were great for building buildings and for wood to burn. But it also had huge groves of pawpaws growing in that forest. It's been recorded that the Indians, the Shabana and the Potawatomis, would come down into this area a few times a year and camp. So they would come down from just 10 miles away up around the town of Shabana, and they would come down and camp here. And one of the main draws for them in the fall was to come down and eat and harvest the fresh pawpaw fruit. The first settlements in this area were really those were set up on the east side of the forest. So the original towns that were formed by the settlers is East Pawpaw, directly east of here, about 2 miles, which incidentally is where I live. I live on an original lot of East Pawpaw, where my house is built today, and South Pawpaw, about 2 miles south of there, in the area where another Lion member of ours, Eric Tarr, and a few of the other folks live today. There are cemeteries at both of those spots, and as you look at some of the graves in those cemeteries, you'll find the names of some of the earliest settlers that came to the area. Names like Town, Harris, Goebel, Harding, Wood, Edwards. There's only a few of those families that still have ancestors that are living here, descendants that are living here in the area. Many of those names have, seemingly disappeared from the area, but those were a part of the earliest American settlers. What brought them through this area was, in fact, what we recognize today as Chicago Road. This was originally known as the this was an Indian trail from Chicago to Dixon, and this was also the route that most of the settlers brought when they came out of Chicago. So they would find these stopping places along the way. And again, this huge 2,000 acre forest was a huge attraction for them and why so many stopped there. So originally the settlers primarily settled out there. Eventually there were also a group then that settled here on the west side of the grove. So originally there were 3 villages in this area: East Pawpaw, South Pawpaw, and this was originally known as West Pawpaw. Eventually, over time, well, I'll touch on that here in a minute. For most of those first settlers that came out here, and as the land was sold then to the settlers but from the government acquired it in 1929 with the Treaty of, 1829, excuse me, with the Treaty of Prairie du Chien. It gave, and at that time they gave a huge chunk of that land to a Madeline Ogie and a Pierre de Klerk. So for some of us that are local residents and historians, you'll still hear people referred to today as the OG section and the Leclerc sections, which were huge parts of that forest that were originally sold to those folks. Over years, what happened with the forest then was that the forest was broken into small lots that they called wood lots. So all the people that were living in these settlements, either in South, East, or West Pawpaw, would buy a 1 to 10 acre lot in the forest, and they would use that for firewood. They would go out with their wagons or sleighs in the winter, and they would cut firewood and cut other wood, cut trees for wood to build their buildings. And over time, through that process, and then at time when other land was cleared for farming, eventually the forest was thinned and ultimately has nearly disappeared. Today, all of what was the Pawpaw Grove, as it was known, the 2,000 acre forest was known from those early days as Pawpaw Grove, is all owned by private owners now. So there's no public land or anything that's accessible to the public. It's all owned by private lands. Much of it now is farmland, but there is still a considerable amount of timber in those areas and wooded areas. And within those areas, interesting enough, or happily enough, I'm happy to report there are still many, many groves of pawpaw trees growing that were here from the native groves in Pawpaw Grove and from the native forest. They're prospering, they're fruiting, they're spreading, and it seems clear that the original Pawpaw Grove will continue to prosper for many, many, many years, knowing the owners of the land and the places that those trees are still growing today. Early in the 1880s, the railroad came to town, and actually Pawpaw had 2 branches. They had one branch that went east of town and then connected probably right about where we are and went up to Shabana, a town about 10 miles to the northeast. The second line came through town, curved out to the south of town, and went down to Earlville. From that point on, there was a more readily available, ready access to coal that came in on the trains. And so the burning of wood to heat houses and as a primary source of fuel diminished. And again, during that time in the late 1800s and early 1900s, much of that land then was reconsolidated into larger lots, converted and cleared for farming, and is farmland today. There's a small creek that runs through town and goes out through the area to the east called Pawpaw Run. And that's a place that the pawpaw really seems to prosper, an area that's not tilled and is still growing a lot of those same trees, the oak, black walnut, and pawpaws grow abundantly throughout those areas. There's kind of a long history too of the pawpaw tree and pawpaw lions. By the mid 80s or 1980s in that area, you really would find very few pawpaw trees in town. In fact, the Paras talk about coming to town in the 1990s, and they can only find one tree. It's a tree that sits up on the corner of Main Street and Flag Street, Chicago Road and Flag Street, and is a part of our tour, owned today by Connie Shannon. Her father planted that tree, Chet Gaines, who was a longtime member of the Pawpaw Lions, and that tree actually came from the original Pawpaw Grove, brought to town by Roger Tarr, the father of Eric, who was a real promoter of pawpaws in that period of time. Eric and as Austin said, Eric's dad and who since passed away, but Eric lives on the farm where he grew up, and that land still has a nice little group of trees that his father planted to try to keep the pawpaws alive in the area. Later in the 1990s, when Rich and Roseanne Parra came to town, they were very interested in helping to promote the growth of pawpaws as well. And when they came to town and only saw there were a few trees in town, they took it upon themselves. Rich joined the Lions Club, and he took it upon himself to do pawpaw tree sales. And those sales that they did during that time, the funds were used to promote community events or community things in the community that had a need. One drive was for the Pawpaw Fire Department, another drive for the Lee County Canine Unit, and the third one was for the Memorial Park and the Veterans Memorial here in the park. So a significant effort was done by them. Over those few years, they sold over 100 pawpaw trees. Now, some of those are still growing. We've identified what we believe to be several of them still on the tour. But as Austin talked, and the guys from Project Pawpaw, it's not always easy to keep a pawpaw tree going. So not a lot of those trees remain in town today. Today we see other 11 properties in town with pawpaw trees. I would still say that only one or two of those are trees that actually have come from the original Pawpaw Grove. The others are being grown by other enthusiasts and people in town that, again, Rich and Roseanne helped promote. And also, there are some newer people in town, or some people just in the last few years have taken a huge, bigger interest and are growing trees, seedlings, and things with the interest of trying to get more of them in town and promote the pawpaw and the pawpaw fruit to keep it established here in a town that, to me, was certainly named after the pawpaw tree. Before I end here, I want to invite Eric up here for a minute. As I said, Eric lives out on South Pawpaw Road and is living right in, would have been the south edge of the Pawpaw Grove, the 2,000-acre grove. His father was a longtime Lions member, Eric as well, over 40 years with the Pawpaw Lions Club, and his dad was a strong promoter of the pawpaw trees. And with that, I'll let Eric say a few words.
Thank you, Neal. It's sure a windy day, but who's ever all having fun? That's what I like to hear.
Keep it up there a little closer.
My dad ran the Pawpaw elevator here in Pawpaw, and he bought the Rollo grain elevator over in Rollo, and he bought the one in Lee. And when he retired, or he went out and started moving pawpaw trees and stuff. I mean, not moving pawpaw trees, but here back in I think in the mid '80s, or we held a Lions Club convention here in Pawpaw. They came out and dug some pawpaw trees up to give to district governors. And that probably 1 or 2 before I think it might be a year before I joined the club. And so I'll tell you what, I got all kinds of pawpaw trees. I mean, I seen probably about 3 clusters the other day. And I'll tell you what, when they grow, and they grow, they just don't give up.
It's a good thing. Thanks, Eric. Since we're talking about our family history, I guess I will throw in a couple, a little background on myself and my family. We weren't among the earliest settlers to come to the area in the 1830s, but my ancestors did come here shortly thereafter. Earliest records we show were that one of my ancestors, Neal Rogers, owned the land just to the west of Pawpaw here as early as 1845. In fact, the land that he owned is the land I grew up on, and today one of my nephews lives there and operates the family farm there. And our farm has been operated by a member of the Rogers family since 1848. It's the 3rd longest operating family farm in Lee County, followed only by the Gilmore family in Compton, of which a lot of folks in town, all their parents lived here in town for a while after they retired as well, but very well known in the community. And then another farm over in Sublette that had been operating for just a few years longer. I think the Gilmore's farm was operated 1 year. They purchased and started farming 1 year earlier than my family did. And I'm happy to say that as far as the Rogers and the Rogers farm, that with 4 nephews and a niece on the way, that all live here in Pawpaw, that I'm pretty comfortable to say that our family farm will continue to operate for well over 200 years under the Rogers family name. So thanks for listening and have a great day. Any questions? So there's fruit samples up there still at the shelter. If Dave hasn't run out already, we just asked for a free will donation to go towards the Lions Club for future events. Looks like still a few shirts left. More food. When you get ready to leave, I would encourage everybody to stop up at the Beaver Den for a few drinks or some food. Excellent food. Best prime rib around on Saturday night.
All right, a special thank you to Neal Rogers for speaking. He was also a major driving force behind getting this festival organized. He's really got it together, as do the Paw Paw Lions, and the Paw Paw Lions Club Pawpaw Festival in Pawpaw, Illinois returns this September 20th.
2025.
Yeah, it's a Saturday, so mark your calendars. And what better way to end than with a Beaver Den Tavern commercial in there? They are a fantastic establishment in downtown Pawpaw, a COVID success story. They're a neighborhood bar with like a supper club vibe.
This is not a real commercial, but that prime rib.
Well, I'm a regular now, basically, because for a long time they were the only restaurant in town. So I've eaten there just about every day of the week now. I know all the specials also. You got your Taco Tuesday, your, let's see here, Italian Beef Wednesday. That was pretty nice. Fried chicken on Thursday, and the fish special on Friday, plus the prime rib Saturday night.
If you love it so much, why don't you move there?
Well, I'm looking at house. No,
All right.
and of course, you got to get the seasoned fries. So read about them in Your Resource for Living magazine.
Very fun magazine that comes to your door. Free.
Yeah, and speaking of Your Resource for Living magazine, I got a shout out to Sean Beck as well, without whom this wouldn't have been possible. Check us out at pawpawfest.org and email us at info@pawpawfest.org if you want to get involved. And of course, there's the Paw Paw Lions Club Facebook page. So now some trivia answers here, yes?
Yes. Okay. So get out your piece of paper that you wrote all your answers on. No prizes are involved. You're not going to get a cheesecake, I'm sad to say. Someone already took it. Pawpaw Trivia answers. For number 1, the answer was
Pulp.
pulp.
That's what you want to be, a bee, pulp, yeah. That's
Bee.
what you want to be eating, not the leaves, as
Yeah.
Sue likes to enjoy.
Leaves. Yeah. Okay. And then number 2, way down yonder in the pawpaw patch. Okay. Number 3. Okay, those presidents, Thomas Jefferson,
She's
What?
reading my horrible handwriting. That's
George-
G, George Washington. We've got G, Herbert Hoover. Uh-oh. Here's Herbert Hoover now. Get in here.
Get in here, friend.
So, yeah.
So this is Eek.
She's not the only one to object to Herbert Hoover there. He was not officially the... Okay, so the correct answers, just to back up here, were A, Thomas Jefferson, and D, George Washington, or so we thought. But we were corrected by a festival attendee, Dan, who mentioned that Herbert Hoover talked about pawpaws in his either a biography of Herbert Hoover or an autobiography. So
We'll check
yes.
that up before next
Yeah.
year or something.
Eek smells something wrong
And-
with that, though. And then we, of course, H, Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, we don't know if you like pawpaws, but we salute you.
Yes,
sir.
they were maybe some not so thoughtful red herrings. So anyway,
Okay. So if
moving on.
A and B.
Yeah,
But if you
A
got,
and B,
Okay.
but we're not going to count it against you
Yeah.
if you think other presidents might like pawpaws. 'Cause
All right.
Who knows?
Question 4, A, the alternate branching.
Yep.
Number 5, D,
That's the Burpee Museum of Local History. As far as we
Burpee
know,
Museum of Natural History.
natural history. I'm sorry. Let's get this cat out of here. Would you go on?
No, she won't.
All right.
All right. She loves pawpaws.
Okay, so
I don't
number
remember the question.
that's okay. Number 5 is D, the Burpee Museum of Natural History. Now the question was, the question was, which of these sites do not have pawpaws? Now, they may have a fossil of the pawpaw, but as far as I know, they don't have the trees on site. And the other places were the Franklin Creek
Yeah,
Mill,
yeah.
Adventure Course, and State Recreation Area, I think
Okay.
is the name of that. And then, what were the others?
That doesn't matter. People.
Allerton Park was one of them,
Okay.
and then I'm blanking on the other one.
But hey, Burpee, if you want Burpee, we love you. If you'd like some pawpaws, give us a ring. Number 6, the answer is D, Michelle Obama.
Yes.
I really don't remember these questions at all.
She was the one who planted a pawpaw in the White House kitchen
yes.
garden.
Okay. Number 7, C, Yellow
Bill
BC.
Cuckoo.
The
Sorry.
yellow-billed
I
cuckoo.
should have written these out a little bit
Maybe
better.
I should have listened to this podcast
right.
before
Those
I...
are the
Okay.
the birds in the James J. Audubon print.
Okay.
And so D,
If you're
the
still...
flower
Wait, this is number 8.
for 8. Excuse
D,
me.
the flower. I don't remember the question, but flower was the answer.
Yep. And
Number 9.
damn it, this is terrible. Because I don't have number 10. I have all the way through number 9, but apparently got distracted for number 10. And I don't honestly remember what number 10
So
is
the
either,
maximum seed number would be 8, or yeah.
So
would
the
be 8.
the maximum seeds are in one pawpaw, which I believe is cut off at 13, possibly 14.
Okay.
And then the max number of fruits in a cluster is 9.
Oh, the answer, that's a B, not an 8.
So max seeds B is greater.
Okay. And so, friends, if you want the answer to number 10, join us next time for our next Pawpawdcast.
Oh my God.
Number 8, the triloba in Asimina triloba is the D, the flower. The flower has 3 petals. That's the tri part of it. So D. Question 9. The answer is B. The maximum number of seeds in a single fruit is greater than the maximum number of pawpaws in a cluster. B is that answer. And then finally, 10. The pawpaw, the butterfly you see flitting around pawpaws, if you're lucky, that is B, the zebra swallowtail butterfly.
All right. Well, those are the answers. Hopefully you scored well on your Pawpaw Trivia.
What's the prize? You get a big good job from us.
Yes.
High five when we see you.